Deep Dive. My name is John, and today my guest is my instructor, Grandmaster Esteller. Thank you for joining us, Sifu.
Glad to be here.
Now, Grandmaster Esteller is a 9th degree black belt in the Gaylord branch of Kajukenbo. He's also been my instructor. He's been teaching Kajukenbo for decades. He also has a special program that he's worked in the junior high schools, Safe Kids program that has had a very positive effect on the kids in the area. And by the way, I will be calling him Sifu because he's my direct teacher. If you have any questions, please check out our podcast on Grandmaster Juarez. We talked about that there and why that's important to us. Sifu, you've been doing martial arts like since the 60s, is that right?
67, I started Taekwondo. 68, I found Kajukenbo, and everything else I do is just to make my Kaju better.
All right, cool. And you've been teaching, how long have you been teaching now?
My first official class that was my own was at San Leandro High School in 1971. And I got, every Thursday, the school got off at 2:30 and there was after school activities. And my class was one of those activities. I did that through my junior and most of my senior year.
Okay. And you spent a lot of time teaching. I do hear at one point in your life you were quite the dancer as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I call that my triple D era.
Triple B.
Yeah, triple D. Drunk, decadent, and dehydrated.
So, moving on, we want to talk about Grandmaster Gaylord today. Can you tell us when was the first time you met him? What happened there?
Well, I was at that potluck dinner that he took Great Grandmaster Juarez and drug him across the table. But I really didn't see him too much in my teen years. I mean, he was the professor, right? So he was mostly, I was a blue belt through that time. I think 71 or so, I got my blue belts, maybe 70. And I stayed there for like 8 years. So the rest of my time until I refound Juarez, I was a blue belt. I did other things, but so I don't remember too much of him in those days other than once in a while he would come in and more people talking about him. So most of my experience with him was probably from 79, 80 on up. Yeah, I would be considered probably late second, early third generation because I was right at the tail end of Juarez, Rich Minenti, Max Palin, and then I was more with his younger brothers, Max and Basilio, and that group.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned that legendary Juarez on the table. So you were there that night, huh?
I was about 16 years old, maybe 15. Yeah, it was one of those bam moments, you know. Better him than me. Little did I know, 30 years later, it would be me.
And you mentioned in those early years, I know that this is not like the time when you really got to know him well, but you did see him once in a while when he came in.
Yeah, yes, yeah. That was at the MacArthur Boulevard School. Yeah, he would come in once in a while. I wasn't in a lot of those classes though.
What was your impression at that time? I mean, I know it was just very small.
I mean, he was the professor. He was scary, and I saw him. I was young. I was probably 14, 15, 16, right around in that age group. So I didn't. I was amazed by what he did, breaking the chopsticks on the throat and bending the spear on his throat and all that kind of stuff, Of course, that impresses a young mind.
And then later on, what happened when you got to see him more often?
Well, that's when he started really doing the black belt classes, and it started in Fremont, if I remember. I mean, they had other ones, but my experience when he started in Fremont, probably in that 79, 80 time frame. And then it was once a month ever since then. So, that was a good 30 years was once a month. He would teach us for $20. I mean, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience to witness his martial innovation growing through through those years as well, because he wasn't satisfied knowing what he knew either. He was an innovator and took from the best and made it the best, made it better in a lot of occasions. So.
Now the black belt workout, I remember he used to come to your school quite a bit. For anyone who might not know what that was like, can you tell us more what that was, why it was, what was the reason behind the black belt workouts?
He wanted to make sure at this point that we were doing things at least close to the same. He didn't really care, and that's why to this day there's little differences between the different groups, but the concept on all of them is the same. In the real early days, that curriculum really wasn't that important. I think that second generation really put it together by numbers, because he never taught the same thing twice the same way. Sometimes it was very confusing learning from him, because what do you want us to do? Okay, boom, okay, this time it's that, this time it, and that's okay, because they all work. Mm-hmm. So, but at that time, he wanted to put all these things together, make sure that we were doing at least close to being the same. So a lot of those first ones were really dedicated to the curriculum and the finer points of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. But we got to put on gloves and spar a lot too, so it was fun. It was fun all the way around.
Now, as those workouts, they've changed over the time. How big do those classes get?
They were generally around 20, 25. I mean, there was months that, that it was more, and there was months that there was less, but it really forged the love of each other, and this group grew and stayed together because of him. Mm-hmm. I would venture to say that the KAA was one of the most loyal and dedicated groups to him because of the way that he treated us. There was very little drama. He didn't deal with drama very well. Drama was gone or in the dirt or 6 foot under with him. And so what little drama there was, it seemed to work itself out.
So taking a step back, how would you describe him as a person? What was he like? Who was he?
He was funny. He liked the party, that's for sure. He liked to have fun, and including in his martial arts, because he made it fun. It was no nonsense, but it was still fun. Unless you were the one he was hitting for that particular day. I mean, he had moments. I think all of us have stories about getting hit by him and what it felt like, or what we can remember of it feeling like, because a lot of the times those bright white flashes were going off, and we couldn't remember. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I remember. I got hit by him quite a few times.
This nut didn't fall that far from the tree. So, yeah, it was always fun, and he was just a great person and so giving to everybody. I often tell the story. I grew up without a father, but I don't ever feel like I didn't have a father, because he was that way to all of us. I wasn't even as close to him as a lot of the other ones were. I didn't get to do too many of the backyard workouts, but hey, I still felt that love nonetheless.
And then how about the whole family, as the whole Kajukenbo family? You mentioned they got together and they were close. Did you get to know a lot of that original core group?
You talking about his second generation group?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. The Palins, Max Palin and all his brothers I trained with, so stayed, friends with them throughout the years, and his sons now, I think I still have a good relationship with all of them. I haven't seen his brothers very much. They stopped training long ago, so I haven't seen too many of them. Rich Minenti, I've stayed friends with for 50 years, and as well as some of his students up in Oregon, his first generation students up in Oregon, Fred King, John Lauren, that whole group that I knew as well. Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit more about the difference in these people, this whole second generation? You mentioned how like these different people have kind of tweaked the techniques, made something different here and there. Did you see any obvious differences among these students? Like any that particularly went a particular way, or?
Not really. I mean, some schools kind of went the tournament way and dedicated their students to tournament competition. Nothing wrong with that. And I saw Kajukenbo as a whole gravitate toward that because in general, Kaju did very, very well at the tournaments. The forums are solid. The people train hard. I'm talking about KSDI, KSDS, all of us. I mean, Kaju Strong is drilled into us from very early on. Again, and so we've always done well at the tournaments. My personal, I wanted to keep with the origins of the Kaju and keep it more self-defense. So me personally, I kind of gravitated toward that. I just do what I do, and a lot of that, but a lot of the concepts and most of those concepts come either directly from Great Grandmaster Gaylord or through Great Grandmaster Juarez through Gaylord, because they're the same concepts, just presented different ways. And I do the same thing with my students. I'm watching you teach your classes there, and I commented. I mean, my heart bursts with pride, not just for what you're doing, but I see our drills, not just my drills, our drills from my teachers behind me as well, and I see it. So, thank you.
Thank you for giving it to me. It's an honor to do that to the next generation as well. Speaking of which, I know that you saw some of the kids that I was working with. Did Grandmaster Gaylord ever say anything about the Safe Kids program or working with the kids at your school?
Not really. I mean, the only ones that he saw from my school were my brown and black belts. I really didn't bring too many green belts, and being that I have been mostly kids, I really didn't take too many to his workout black belt. So honestly, unfortunately, very few of my students got to actually experience him. I'm sad about that, but that's just the way it was. They were too young to be in his class.
Okay.
For many reasons. He was quite colorful in his explanation. Let's just put it that way. Stop.
Kids can't hear that word, yeah. What would you say was the biggest impact that he had as a martial artist, or as on Kajukenbo and as a martial arts world? How did he change things for the better?
He's one of those few instructors that wanted you to go out and learn other stuff and bring it back. And there are very few high-ranked instructors that have that philosophy, because they have to know everything. They have to be the one that teaches and knows everything. And he wasn't like that at all. So to me, that was that's how our association grew to do so many different things. I mean, our association we're not the only ones that do that now and spread out, and nor have we always. There's always been. But I think we're one of the first that was incorporating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He got us introduced to Hickson Gracie in 90, 91, something like that, way pre-UFC, right? So, look at Tom Theo and the direction he went with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, we've had our moments with it here as well. Mm-hmm. So, giving us a love of other arts, to me, is the greatest thing he gave us.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to MMA, I mean, people mix Muay Thai with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as you just mentioned. Everyone knows, they know the name Jeet Kune Do because they know Bruce Lee, and they know UFC and how that is. It seems, my own personal opinion, much fewer people know the name Kajukenbo, even though
we like it like that. It's called the element of surprise.
Did Gaylord ever talk about that? Did he ever say thoughts about that idea? I've heard as well, like UFC, a lot of guys didn't want to mention it.
Not that I'm aware of. He was very happy that because his schools did very well at the tournaments. And then we were, just before his passing, we were starting to get, that's just when Tom was just getting those boys ready, and Michael was just a kid. But here's Michael, one of his, I wish he would have been around to watch my son-in-law, Michael Mayday McDonald, fight for a UFC championship. Maybe he didn't get it, but he sure fought hard for it and had a great career. And I would love for Gaylord to have known that one of his lineage was doing so well, and he's not the only one. There's quite a few. Eric Coleman had a pretty nice little Muay Thai career there as well. So yeah, I think he'd be happy that his lineage went on to other things as well.
Where do you hope to see the Gaylord lineage go in the future? The current generation of students coming from him?
That's a great question, and I think it can be answered in well, I guess it's 3 words: black belt class. We've been trying to put it together. I mean, COVID put a big dent in it, but Zoom is a great medium, and Great Grandmaster Juarez has been starting to utilize that within the last couple of months. We're done for the season, but I think January 17th, they just put it out, is going to be the next one. And it will be Zoomed as well. Now, that being said, the Zoom classes are not Zoom classes. They're just being broadcast on Zoom. So there's nobody monitoring those classes. Right now, we're working on doing specific Zoom curriculum classes. Kelly and I are working on that right now. So, and maybe some of it may be with Great Grandmaster Juarez, some of it may be with other instructors as well. So we all get different flavors, but keeping it within the curriculum so it stays about the KAA, and it stays about Gaylord's material, and it stays within his lineage.
All right. So almost finished for today. One last question. If you could pass any message on to Great Grandmaster Gaylord, what would you want to tell him now?
Your system will survive. We are the guardians of the galaxy, and we promise that your system will survive, your techniques will survive, your concepts will survive. Through you, through these 2 high school kids that I have teaching in the other room right now. Because I don't teach them any different than I do you. I don't teach them any different than Juarez taught me or Gaylord taught him. So we add new stuff, but with Gaylord's concepts on those hits, stay strong, to be strong, right?
Yeah.
Train strong to be strong all the time. That's in our minds and our hearts and etched in our souls.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all the time we have today. So thank you for joining us, Sifu.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
If those of you at home, I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay strong, stay Kajukenbo strong. Mahalo.